Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of filmandtvreview.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Filmandtvreview.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see filmandtvreview.com.
Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Film and TV Review, and joined by our regular hosts, Alfonso, Andrew, James, and Richard. And we'll just talk about our thoughts about what's been on the cinema and streaming services this month. I think we'll kick off with this edition, I think, with another film, and a book adaptation by the showrunners of A Game of Thrones. This is The Three-Body Problem, a trilogy of books, but I think spanning a quite kind of epic, eon-spanning tale of humanity and so forth. But largely science fiction. It's a Prime series, I guess.
Netflix.
Netflix. Okay, so Richard and Alfonso, you both saw this. What's your thoughts so far? So all episodes available, or is it?
Yeah, all of them were released on the same day,
Oh.
which was the 21st of March, I think.
Okay. So just give me a quick premise. I just outline it.
Okay. If I may, Alfonso. So the premise. So it's actually set in two different eras. So we have two storylines in parallel. At first, you have a storyline in the 1960s, let's say 1970s in China. And then you have another storyline, which is in the 2020s. The whole idea of the first half of the 8-episode season is actually to try to solve a very worldwide mystery. And the origin of this mystery is in China in the 1960s. You have one of the main characters of the story, who is a Chinese scientist who it's like the first 5 minutes of the show, by the way, who witnesses the death of her father, who is also a scientist. And one thing after the other, she ends up becoming a scientist working for China, for the Chinese government, in a top secret facility in the mountains in the west side of China. And she actually thinks at first that it's a project. It's a project to build new weapons. Actually, because China is actually during what we call in French the Green Revolution, actually of Mao Zedong, they're actually working extremely hard, really, really hard, actually to try to develop as quick as they can and try to become kind of what they want to be, which is a third superpower, while USA and USSR are the two main superpowers back then. and that's what she thinks actually she's working on a weapon, a new kind of weapon. But as I said, the story is full of twists and full of surprises, especially in the first 4 episodes. So actually, she will find out quite quickly that it's not a weapon. And her storyline of the 1960s, 70s in the first 4 episodes ends with her making such a huge decision, a huge scientific decision, something actually completely crazy, in my opinion. One of the most unexpected thing I would see done by a character. I'll be honest with you, something that will change literally the course of humanity.
Some days you wake up in a bad mood and you take
Exactly, yeah. I
Sometimes
didn't see
not the
8
day.
coming at all. That was crazy. And then it ends on that scene. And then on parallel, as I said, you have the real main characters, let's say, which is a group of scientists and astrophysicists who are, most of them I think are British, but some of them also Mexican, etc. And in a way, in the 1920s, in our era, in a world that looks exactly like us, like ours,
2024.
facing literally what you can say are the consequences of the decision made by these Chinese women scientists in the 1960s. It's consequences that affect this group of scientists in 2020s first on a personal level, because one of them literally killed herself after 10 minutes in the show. And it's kind of this very tragic event kind of snowball and put them together, trying to understand what's going on, why she killed herself. And also there are really strange things that happen to them. They start to receive one after the other, receive strange gifts in the and the gift is VR set, a very advanced VR set, I call it VR set, I guess. And things get, as I said, a lot of questions are raised episode after episode, but only for the first 4 episodes of what's going on. The consequences, as I said, of the decision made by these Chinese scientists not only affect them, but quickly at the end of the first episode, it affects the whole world with something already extraordinary happening to the whole world after only 60 minutes in the show. And it keeps getting crazier and crazier for the first 4 episodes. A lot of questions, and you think that you are watching perhaps TV show written by Damon Lindelof, like Lost or Leftovers, thinking, is it going to be like these ones where you have questions after questions but no answers, or you have to wait like 6 years to get an answer? To be fair, no. And I don't know if we should thank the showrunners, Benioff and Weiss, or the writer of the book. I will read the book and I will tell you guys. But at least you have answers quite quickly, in my opinion, because by the end of episode 4, which is literally the half of the season, you have, in my opinion, most of the questions answered, like 99% of them. It's a shocking revelations one after the other. And the second half of the show is, after all the mystery, let's say, almost all mysteries are resolved, etc. The second half is more of what the group of scientists in the 2020s are going to do to, let's say, save the world. Not, again, trying to avoid spoilers, because the revelations that they have been given and the world that has been given is really dramatic. And the reaction of the society actually is very interesting. The reaction of the society is kind of, in my opinion, feels realistic. If something like that would happen in our world, such a revelation would happen in our world, I think people would react in different ways, like we see in the TV show. And they have to find a way to actually to stop this dangerous path to end in a very bad place, and try to actually to change the path that she set course in the 1960s. And the end of episode 5 is probably, for me, in the last few months, one of the best scenes I've seen on TV. Again, extremely shocking. It's not. I loved it. Honestly, I thought it was. It's kind of scary, very scary. And for any lover of sci-fi, it's If you love imagination, if you love sci-fi, this show is for you anyway. And that's actually where I'm getting at. Is perhaps it's maybe why I can see that some people actually don't like that show, because it can be divisive. because it's definitely not for everyone in a way that I'm not saying it's complicated. I don't think it is compared to other shows in the past. But I think that yes, it is definitely a show about science. It's very real. The science here, they know what they're doing. They did their homework before showing the show. It's a show about the importance of science over maybe faith or over politics. Science is so important, especially nowadays. I think it's important to have a show like this, by the way. And maybe that's why it wasn't appealing to everyone. Also, from what I understand, the adaptation has taken some liberties, let's say, and it's not exactly loyal to the source material, but I don't care. As long as actually it's good, and I think it's good, I kind of don't care. I mean, Lord of the Rings, I always talk about this. They took liberties and it was fine. Now the question mark is, will there be actually a second season and a third season? The good thing is actually the showrunners have clearly said actually that they just need 3 or 4 seasons and nothing more, actually, to adapt the trilogy of books. The problem that I can see happening is that where it ends and when you can imagine it's going to be happening in the next few seasons, it's going to be completely crazy if they go all the way. And it's going to cost a fortune. And actually, the show already cost a fortune. It already cost apparently $20 million an episode, for what I understand. An episode. So if this is let's say, the part of the trilogy that was the cheapest to adapt, I can't imagine how much it's going to cost Netflix to do the other seasons. So let's hope they're not going to cancel it, because Netflix, unfortunately, are quite famous to cancel things that are quite popular. But the good thing is, and that's why I took the risk, is that even if it happens, then we have the books, so we can still get the end of the story in the books. So I think I kind of managed to explain everything without talking much about the main plot, which is definitely the main strength of the show, because I think that it's better to watch this thing without knowing much.
I did
This is
hear.
quite an adult show, but at the same time, as Richard said, it has a lot of ambition in its imagination and situations. So even though, for example, the characters are not one of those characters that people instantly get attached to, some of the characters are actually not that, but the opposite, maybe. Plot-wise, it's always interesting. It's always it's one of those shows that, as Richard said, it can be as ambitious as a Damon Lindelof show, but it gives you more answers more quickly, and it's and you feel that there are real stakes.
A lot of money, I understand, thrown at this by Netflix, as they tend to. They always go in quite hard when they want a flagship kind of like title. And I think, from what I understand, they've 3 books spanning different eras of human era, and in solving this problem, they kind of mixed up or tried to put it into almost simultaneously in the series. So I was wondering how that would be. I don't know if fans of the book would like it or not, but it seems quite positive from what you're saying, Richard.
Oh yeah, I didn't say, but I think you guessed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I honestly, I watched the 8 episodes in a row. I'm not even joking. Sunday, I watched it all together because I found it fascinating. It made me think of, again, avoiding spoilers. It made me think, and you guys might guess what I'm talking about. It definitely made me think of one of my favorite movie with Jodie Foster.
Avatar.
Oh my God.
The C word.
Are you going to mention the C
exactly,
word?
yeah.
The C word. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
The C word.
And it also made me think of Don't Look Up. What was that the name of the DiCaprio movie?
Yeah, the asteroid or
the thing with that asteroid, etc. Comet. It made me think about that as well, but in a good way, because again, the idea of science being actually the answer, etc. I really like this theme. Yeah,
it's quite. I also binge watched it, so yeah, it's you always want to continue.
That's encouraging, actually. Right. Next, I think a few of our hosts actually saw Immaculate. Did you see, James? You saw Immaculate?
Yeah, so I'd seen the trailers for this, and I thought it looked like it was going to be quite a sort of average horror film. I thought it might be quite pedestrian, quite middle of the road. But it's a film stars Sydney Sweeney, who I've got to say is quite impressing me with some of her film choices. We'll leave Madam Web out of it. But I saw her in a film called Reality, which is really good. I think on one of these chats as well, I started dissing Anyone But You without having watched it, and you all dared me to go and watch it so I could rant about it, and I quite enjoyed it, and I thought she was very good in it. She's very good in this. So she plays a nun, a young nun who goes to a remote convent in Italy. We find out that as a child or as a teenager, she fell through some ice and she was clinically dead for 7 minutes, and she believes that God saved her life. So she goes to this convent where everybody seems not very happy with her because she's an outsider, bit sort of the new girl. The older nuns don't like her; they seem a bit creepy. The younger nuns, they don't like her. It then transpires that she is basically she's sort of taken into a room, and these guys are sort of asking, has she ever had sexual relations with a man? And it all seems very controlling and odd, and you don't really understand where this is going. Are they just very sort of misogynistic? But it turns out she's pregnant. Hence, that's why the film's called Immaculate. So she has never had relations with a man, but she is pregnant. Is she carrying? Is this the second coming of the Messiah? That's sort of the first thing in it, and then it goes very odd. And I won't say what the next twist is, but it's more Jurassic Park than you would think. This film, there's no dinosaurs, but in terms of plot and where this goes, I started watching it thinking it was a really packed showing that I saw, and it was a Saturday night, and I thought, oh, this is going to be average. It's going to be full of like jump scares and stuff like that, and it didn't really have that. But it's very twisted. In some ways, it's more like it certainly would satisfy the horror crowd, but it's almost like a really twisted thriller that earns its 18 certificate. And the final scene is just so out there where you're like, yeah, they're just going all in on this. They don't care. They're just gonna. And I think she's really great in that final scene of this film, which obviously I'm not going to say what that is. But my only regret about this film is that we're recording this on Easter weekend, is that I didn't leave it for Easter weekend, because it's kind of like the least appropriate film to watch on an Easter weekend. But it really surpassed my expectations, and my expectations were very, very low on it. But it is a horror that feels genuinely uncomfortable to watch in places, and I'm really impressed by Sydney Sweeney in the way that she sort of, I think she gives very grounded performance in everything I've seen her in, but is able to rise to the stuff that she needs to be able to do. It actually reminded me a little bit of when years ago I saw Russell Crowe in Gladiator. He's playing a hero, and I thought he was very good. And I saw him in an Australian low budget thing called Romper Stomper, where he plays a villainous neo-Nazi, and I thought he was brilliant as well. But it's when I saw him in The Insider, and he's like the everyday guy, and he can play that. And a lot of actors, they can do big, but they can't tone it down and do like a grounded form. I know some of them can, or some of them can't actually do. Maybe rise to the other stuff, but the people that can kind of rein it in and almost like go under the radar, she's very much like that. She's a very believable character, but then when she needs to dial it up towards the end of the film, I think those bits work very well as well. So I really enjoyed it. I recommend it. It's called Immaculate, and it's in cinemas now.
Yeah, thanks, James. That's on cinema, isn't it? Actually, you went to the film
At the moment, yeah.
At the moment. Well, okay. Next up is something that I managed to catch, which was X-Men 97. Now, this is on Disney Plus, and it is, and I've got to say, a absolute continuation, without almost missing a beat, of the original, much lauded X-Men series. Back in I guess 97. It finished from 92 to 97. A great animated series, and probably one of the most truest depictions of the X-Men, and covered quite a lot of the key storylines from the X-Men classic X-Men comics in a very, very good series. Great voice acting, and of course, X-Men 97, I think, carries on about just a year after that, although it's more than like 20 years after that initial series aired. It is well, the short version is actually brilliant. It is actually doesn't miss a beat. Quite a few of the voice actors are back, and the stories just carries on almost straight after when the original series ended. Noel, you saw this. Andrew, did you catch this as well? What are your thoughts
I did too.
on this? And you, Alfonso. Yes. So, Andrew, start with you. Which do you?
Oh, yeah, because I know you discussed it at the in-person event. Um, yeah, it's like what you were saying. It's a continuation of the sh animated program from the 90s. So basically, to sum up, there's something that's happened to Professor X, and he's had to leave Earth, but the official explanation to everyone else, that isn't part of this inner circle, is that he's dead. He's not actually dead, but he's in space somewhere getting medical treatment. So basically, Scott Summers, Cyclops, is the new team leader. And he says that iconic line, to me, my X-Men. Uh, so uh, it's kind of tough for me to talk about something that's kind of continuing because I guess there's 10 episodes for this first season, and it's like after we're up to episode 3. So, and then there's going to be a couple more seasons after that, I think. And then
Yeah.
the showrunner got fired in real life. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
The point is that the show is kind of in the middle of a season right now. So I'm kind of curious where it's going to go. So far, they've adapted some of the storylines from the comics, kind of like they had done earlier in the 90s. And it's kind of one of those things where something happens at the end of the episode, and people who are maybe aren't as familiar are sort of like, wait, what's going on? And the people more familiar with the comics are like, I know what's going on. I know that who that character is, what's going on. So, but I'm kind of curious where they're going to go with it. They got a lot of the voice actors back, which is kind of impressive, at least those that are still alive. Sadly, some of them are not. What's really impressive is that they got the voice actress for Rogue. In real life, she's not from the southern U.S. I mean, she's not from the U.S. She's from Canada. In fact, she was a Canadian member of Parliament for a time. She's not a politician anymore, and I guess that's why she's able to do this program. So she does the voice for Rogue once again, and some other people. They're back, but they're not voicing the characters that they voiced earlier. They're voicing different characters. Like I think the person who was voicing Gambit originally is voicing someone else. So someone else voicing it. But sometimes it's a choice. Sometimes voices change over time. So I like it so far. I'm just kind of curious where it's going to go. There's certain things that happen in the first few episodes, so it's like this is like major stuff. So what's going to happen? And then something happens at the end of the last episode, the third episode, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, so what's going to happen next? And you're also going to wonder, again, this is something that's continuation of the show from the 90s. So are other characters who appeared on the 90s version of the show, are they going to come back? Like Apocalypse, when's Apocalypse going to come back? Because they were kind of hinting on one of the last episodes before things went on hiatus for a few decades that Apocalypse is going to come back, and when's that going to happen? So it's kind of you kind of want to see where it's going to go with it, and you can go by the episode titles. Like, oh, okay, I see the episode titles, so maybe I have an idea what's going to happen next. But so I'll see. As I said, it's good so far, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I had a bit of
remainder of the
trepidation coming back. I mean, because it was such a kind of like a well-loved series, but it's the and the showrunner obviously, but he was actually quite involved. When you see the title, he's involved in producing, directing some of a lot of these. He's very involved in it, but he's got the tone perfectly right. It's a shame we've lost him now, but I think he's done seasons 1 and 2. I think he wrote anyway, involved in these stories, putting it together. But it is it's good to actually see something that is actually well preserved and quite a great rate of storytelling in it. Noel, you saw this. Did you catch some of these episodes? You enjoy these?
Yes, I do enjoy the X-Men quite a bit. I have not finished the entirety of the original show, nor have I caught up on episode 3 of the, of 97, but I was impressed so far. thinking it'll lean a little less into action and more into characters, which is what I like. My favorite thing about the original X-Men trilogy is how it's built on characters. You know, the live action movies, it's more about characters than just action. And for the animated series, that was my main issue. Like, it's a show I'll watch in the background, but it's not something I'm going to just focus on. If it's just a bunch of fight scenes, I don't really care about that. So hopefully the new show will be like that. I figured that, you know, like some of the things that happened, I kind of predicted would happen. I'm interested to see where they're going to take one of the storylines. It kind of could go two different ways. I'm hoping it'll go one way from the comics, newer comics, and that will bring in another X-Men who I'm quite fond of. I'm interested to see which other X-Men they do bring in, because I think it's interesting how we see certain X-Men in live action and other ones mostly in animated series. But I think it's very good. It's worrying though that the showrunner is not, you know, going to be involved anymore.
Yeah.
But I think so far it's a strong start. It doesn't miss a beat, as you mentioned earlier. Very good.
It's Disney style.
Yes, it's Disney style.
Showrunner has to go.
Alfonso, you want to add anything to that?
I enjoyed it. I haven't watched the X-Men 97 original series. So, well, I mean, it was a lot of plot in the first 3 episodes, and I'm wondering if it's more episodic or if it's gonna have more elements that will follow through the sort of like through the whole arc of the season, because like lots of things happen in one episode and then kind of stops.
That's
Lots of action.
That's interesting because I haven't seen it yet. But are you saying that it's not an arc but is built over, I don't know, 10 episodes?
It could be no, it could be both. Can you imagine?
It could be both. It could be
If they're writing,
both.
yeah, it could be
Because
both.
the original X-Men in the 90s had a lot of arcs, like huge arcs for several episodes, like obviously the Phoenix Saga or the whatever
The
continent.
Savage Lands.
Yeah,
mean, from-
the land with the prehistoric
Yeah, the Savage
prehistoric
Lands.
animals. Yeah, there's like arcs, etc. That was very fun to follow.
Well, they
From
do
what
it
I've seen, not really. Like the first 3 episodes, they cannot stop what they were the main concept, the main bad guys, the main thing. They just are in that episode, and they wrap up one way or another, and they leave it like maybe you will return, maybe you won't.
Well,
dips.
there's usually like a final scene that sets up for something in the next episode. So
Yeah.
stuff happens in one episode and gets wrapped up, like I guess Alfonso said, and then at the end there's something that
Yeah.
like a sequel hook.
Okay.
It's a
Mhm.
very type of writing which we don't really get to see anymore in episode structure. As in, you both got a cliffhanger, you've got dipping in and out of story arcs, which you don't really just become just the same narrative. You have to see episodes 1, 2, and 3 leading up to it. It will sometimes it will do episode, part 1, 2, and 3, but then that won't go even more than that on the big arcs. But it's great for dipping in and out. It's just very open, and we kind of lost that in a lot of modern TV series formats now. So it's just great that it actually continued that, which it did in the original series. So it's very engaging.
You guys
and very
didn't
fun.
mention one thing I wanted to know. The most important thing is the theme back.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
Front and
that's
Yeah,
center.
that, of course.
It
It's
was
like
the
an
first thing
updated
they
version
showed.
of it, but it is there.
That's half the reason I'm watching the show.
I
Exactly.
think there was
exactly.
actually like a lawsuit. Like some people said they came up with that music beforehand,
Yes.
like way back when, but they're still using the theme, just like a more updated version of it.
Okay.
But it's
Slightly.
there.
Yeah.
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 And everyone is so ripped and like
It's the
much
90s,
like-
man. It's the 90s.
yeah,
What
the
do you
90s,
expect?
the 90s. It's like
Exactly, yeah.
some of them they look so similar to another hero in the show or and there are other things that make them look of other people similar. And
Well, I'm sure they're on a great diet and healthy regime with a trainer
oh yeah, yeah,
and celery.
are
Very
hitting
important
the rim.
celery.
the
So that's all I'll say on that. But anyway, from that,
But may I say, Alfonso, if you have 10 hours of your life to spare, go watch the original ones. It's pretty amazing, to be honest.
it's yes, they
Yeah.
basically cover all the key areas of the key
Yeah.
stories of
It's
X-Men. I mean, they
amazing.
put it all in there. It goes at quite a rate,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
you have three animated, in my opinion, again, obviously it's only me. You have three animated series of the 90s that were really good for not only comic fans, but just whoever like animated series. You have the Batman, you have X-Men, and you have Spider-Man. That's my opinion.
And gargoyles could be all.
Well,
They-
yeah, yes and no, but yeah, okay, yeah.
they kind of
Yeah.
like saved Saturday morning. It was basically it made everyone was fighting for Saturday morning cartoon for the kids who would get it, and these were the big guns basically. Whoever had a great cartoon series on their show basically won the audience. Right. Well, from that, I just on a comic theme still. I just want to quick mention Invincible. I guess second season or continuing the other further episodes. I've just recently started on Prime. Well worth a watch if you haven't caught it yet. Getting very much R-rated, but long story arcs and great characters and great writing. So if you haven't caught up with that, definitely. That's on Prime. Next, I guess we could, James, if you you've caught the cinema because there's a big title what we haven't covered yet, which I'll come to.
I'll talk about Late Night with the Devil, which I saw, starring David Dastmalchian, I think is how you pronounce his name. Someone who I sort of recognise from lots of other roles but couldn't quite place. He sort of looks like he might be related to Robert Pattinson. This is a found footage horror, I suppose. It's actually from the streaming service Shudder, but it's got a theatrical release, and I think it's going down quite well. I assume it will be on Shudder at some point soon. So it's presented as a documentary in that you get 5 or 10 minutes prologue explaining who this character is. So he plays a talk show host in the 70s, who is competing against Johnny Carson, who's was a big talk show host in the States. It's one of those films where I mean I went into this not really knowing anything about it, and it does that Blair Witch thing of saying this is a true story, and I was like, oh, is it? It isn't a true story, but that doesn't matter. You don't need to worry yourself about that. That's just to make you feel a little bit more that the drama is real. But he's the struggling talk show host on US TV. His ratings are falling, and then his wife, who appears on screen with him, actually gets ill and sadly dies of cancer. But this is all in the first 10 minutes, and they then sort of explain that in order to sort of boost his ratings, he wanted to do more and more crazy things. He come back onto TV a lot quicker than his audience were expecting, and he decides to do an occult themed special on Halloween night in 1977. And then they say this is the footage that was broadcast on the night, which has never been re-shown since due to the content, and that's what you're about to see. So it's kind of like a found footage horror film. Apart from the footage has always existed, it's just always been locked in the archives. And on this episode of his show, they bring out a psychic who attempts to sort of deal with people in the audience, saying, "Oh, I can. Has anybody lost someone beginning with M?" All that kind of stuff. The audience are very skeptical. He's very skeptical. There's a magician or an illusionist character in there who's sort of saying, "Well, this guy is just doing the stuff that I do," you know. And then they bring on a young girl who claims to be possessed and her carer, and things get odder and odder as it goes. As with all these things, a bit like if you've watched Blair Witch or the Paranormal Activity films, they have a very slow start as they try to sort of reel you in and that sort of thing. And I've got to say, when the first thing happens in this, there's a CGI effect that I didn't think looked very good, and I thought, oh no, this isn't going to be good. I think this is going to be really terrible. But that's I think it is actually, but that first effect. But as it goes on, it gets creepier and creepier, and by the end of it, I thought it was very, very good. Like Immaculate, I think the final scene is sort of sent chills up my spine. It was very, very effective. And it's got it's sort of got a filter on it that's meant to make it look like it's a 1970s show. I've got to say, I never really felt that it was set in the 1970s. You know, like in the holdovers, they did that. They filmed it digitally and they put an effect on, so it really did look like it was shot in the 70s. Um, in this, I didn't believe that, but as it went on, I didn't really care about that anymore because it wasn't about the style. I was kind of really involved in the storyline of the talk show host and his past and his struggling and stuff like that, and it becomes quite good. They do these little bits as well where they cut to commercial breaks, but we see what's happening behind the scenes. I didn't really feel those bits were that effective because they kind of threw you out of the found footage element of it. But it was still really, really good. And to have seen this and Immaculate, those are two films that I just happened to see back to back after what seems like there hasn't really been that many great horrors
Yeah.
in the last year or so, I don't think. But I thought these were really impressive. So that's called Late Night with the Devil, and it's in cinemas at the moment, but it should be on Shudder very soon.
I think it leans into that grey because the 70s were a grey era for horror during that period. Omen, Exorcist, and so forth. So I'm glad it kind of like it's got that vibe to it. It looks like it is as well, which is really good.
I think
Richard,
it'll work quite well on streaming as well. It worked fine in the cinema, but because it is found footage, I think there's something about on streaming it would work really well because it would be like watching it on you, like if someone had posted it up on YouTube or something like that.
thanks, James. Richard, you have a couple of films you
Yes.
quickly want to mention?
Yeah, just quickly, yeah. So I wasn't a fan of horror movies, so there was only horror movies in cinema apparently in the last few weeks. So, I watched two movies actually, but I just wanted to actually mention. The first one is on streaming, first of all, so it makes no sense. It's a movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt that I mentioned where we chat in the other day, and it's called 7500. And it's a very interesting. I mean, it's not a perfect movie by far, but I found actually that movie showed me that with very little money you can do amazing things if you have a great idea. A bit like Cube back in the day in the 90s. In that case, it's just the story of a American pilot who has to, pilot of a public airplane, and he has to do a flight between Berlin and Paris, and he's co-pilot or pilot anyway, and literally the whole movie is shot inside the pilot cabin, inside the cockpit, the whole 90 minutes, and it's about his plane being hijacked by terrorists, and it's literally on real time. It's lasts, I don't know, 90 minutes or 1 hour and 40 minutes, something like that. And it's almost real time events. At the real time. And it's really, you are really invested in the story. It's really well done, in my opinion. Not all actors are doing a great job, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt deliver a great performance. And yeah, I said, I don't know, it must cost like $10 to do a movie like this, and it works. It works. And the second one, James made fun of the title, and I'm gonna read it. So it's a Canadian movie from my cousins from Quebec. So it's a French-Canadian movie called, and that's how it's been released in the original, the English version. So, humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person. That's the title.
I wasn't making fun of that. I think that's the best title I've heard all year.
But in real French Canadian, because it's obviously a French language, let's say French-speaking movie, it should be actually vampire humaniste recherche un suicidaire consentant. I don't know why I went. I mean, I think I was just bored on one night last Monday, and I just took by just looking at all the movies and say, okay, I will try this one for some reason. And it was not long; it was an hour and a half. I was like, okay, let's do it, and it was a good call. Very lucky, because it's kind of dark humor all the time, and it's a story of a teenage vampire in a vampire family who is disgusted by eating people and drinking the blood of human beings. And obviously, she's kind of a traitor of the family, so they try to force her to do it, but she doesn't want to. And and at some point she meets this young guy who actually is suicidal and is human, and they realize actually that they might be able to actually to kind of make a deal and actually help each other. So it's actually a funny movie about coming of age, but also as I said, about suicide, which is a big deal in teenagers, unfortunately, and it deals with these things with dark humor, but with seriousness sometimes. There is, although it's vampires, it's definitely not gory or etc. I mean, there is a lot of blood, but it's just funny blood, I'd say. And yeah, you have that feeling of perhaps you can think about the Addams Family sometimes, but in a funny way. And yeah, for a movie with that kind of title, it's kind of what do you say, with a happy ending, let's say. But yeah, for yeah. Although you were talking about a guy who wants to kill himself all the time, but yeah, yeah, I recommend it if you find it. And just for the anecdote, and I will finish at this. So I watched it obviously in Paris. It's Québécois speaking the movie in French, but for some reason there were French subtitles. So I think it's kind of insulting for all the people in Quebec because I could understand obviously 90% of the thing they were saying, so I don't understand the point of the subtitle. And anyway, that's all.
The other 10%.
Exactly, yeah, just a few words here and there, yeah.
Right, thanks for that. Right, there is a to our next. Well, getting a big title's been out already for a while, but we haven't quite got around to it. We missed it on the last one, but it's for those big fans of sci-fi. It's a big classic adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. It's Denis Villeneuve's crack at this almost unfilmable book. Part 2. I think we've all had a chance to see it. James, you most recently saw it, I think. I think we all have. So, what is your opinion? I'm guessing most people are favorable to this one. I'm more middle of the ground with this, but what did you think of Dune Part 2 and Part 1?
I mean, I did say in the chat that I maybe admired it more than I enjoyed it, but I did enjoy it like visually. I thought like technically it's an amazing spectacle. And maybe it's sort of something that I would find more in watching it again. I'm not particularly in a rush to go back to see it again, but maybe I will before it leaves cinemas, because maybe with me I end up watching the visuals more than I get into the story. And I think we're so used to now saying with blockbusters, oh, we turn our brain off. I don't think you can do that with Dune because there is a lot of story to engage with. I did feel in the middle of it that it was sort of going off into different directions, and I haven't read the books, but Richard seemed to agree that maybe this would have made more sense as 3 films rather than 2. But the reality of it is they weren't sure whether they would get a 3rd film. Ironically, it looks like they are going to get a 3rd film now, but they weren't even sure when they did the first one if they would get to do a 2nd or 3rd one. So they were kind of hedging their bets and trying to, from my understanding, just do this as part 2 of the book. But I thought it was very good. I thought Javier Bardem and Zendaya are really, really good in it. I thought they're absolutely fantastic. I mean, most of the cast are. Florence Pugh is always brilliant. She's not in this very much, but in the scene she's in, she's fantastic. There's an amazing sort of action sequence, which is probably like 30 minutes in. And the whole world is, you feel completely immersed in it. It's a very brilliantly realized world. I do wonder with certain sci-fi though. Obviously, this is a book from is it the early 70s? The book originates
50s,
from
actually.
1960s, I think.
50s, 60s. So I think sometimes with these books, they really strike a chord with people because they have to imagine these things in their head, and as the reader, you have a unique vision in your head. And when it comes to realizing that, it's like, right, this is what it looks like now. I mean, everybody seems very happy with it. And I'm really glad that it's sort of the biggest movie of the year. I don't think, apart from the odd film now, we don't really get those 1 billion grossing film. There was a point before COVID where it was just everything was doing 1 billion, like the Lion King remake, everything was making that. And I think that's more to do with streaming the fact now that you can have these really big budget things on streaming, maybe more than people not going back to the cinema after COVID. I think it's just that. But I'm really happy that this is the biggest film of the year so far. I'm just not quite as big a fan of it as everybody else. I think there's people that are huge fanatics of this film, and I thought it was really, really good, and that's enough for me. But yeah.
Richard, you're a bit
Yeah.
fond of this, I think. Okay.
I love the movie, yes, but after what James said when we texted, he's right about this thing, about the fact that you admire more than actually you watch this movie. There is a good point here, I have to admit it. Although I really enjoyed it, the first thing I said in my mind, and I said to you guys, that if that movie lasted 10 hours, I'll be fine. I'll pay the ticket and I'll stay 10 hours in the movie theater watching these scenes, because I thought it was a great experience. But it's true at the same time that it's far from being perfect when you look at it as a movie itself. It's extremely enjoyable, but it's far from perfect. There was some, I guess it's a question of adaptation. That is the fact that actually you feel that sometimes Denis Villeneuve, I don't know if he's the one that actually did the adaptation himself, or whoever actually was in charge of adapting from the book, did some kind of shortcuts between things happening and try actually to make the plot move quick, a bit too fast, and you think that okay, this happened quite quickly, isn't it? I mean, obviously the main character played by Timothée Chalamet, Paul Atreides, has the greatest character development in the movie, but at some point it goes even too fast in a way. You might think that him comes from this guy who is scared about his own future, about his destiny, and I would say 10 minutes or 15 minutes later, he's clearly in charge and really actually wants this destiny to happen. He wants actually to control his life, at the same time to accept his destiny. And you say, okay, that's a very he changes his mind quite quickly in a way. And not that there is no explanation why, it's just like glimpse of explanations. And you might think that again, that if this movie was longer, or if there was like a TV show out of it, maybe it would have been better. But yeah, except of this little maybe problem with the plot, definitely I think it is, it's an amazing movie. I mean, you can see the work done behind the camera, and by everyone, not only the crew, but the cast as well. I think Timothée Chalamet, I think, is a very good actor for his age. The question is, what he will do in the next 10 years? But for now, he's a great actor for his age. And I wanted to mention, I said before, I think Rebecca Ferguson is doing her best performance yet in her career in this movie. She was amazing in the Mission Impossible movies, but I think she's killing it in this movie, even better than in the first Dune, the part one, I mean. She's even more important in a way than Timothée Chalamet in this movie. And I don't know what's gonna happen in the future for these movies. We were talking about the fact that actually that if there is a third movie, it would take some time because of the events is gonna happen in the third movie. If it's real adaptation of Dune Messiah, it's possible actually that we need actually to have a time jump, a big time jump. So maybe they will need to age a little this cast. We'll see if Warner accepts this or not. I'm just happy that actually he made 600 million as we speak now. So it means actually that definitely we're going to get a Dune 3 now. And I just want to finish that by saying that by agreeing with James about the fact that you admire more than you watch this movie, I realize myself that actually that in a way it's the same comments I could make about Avatar. I'll talk about this movie again, but in a way it's true that Avatar and Dune kind of had the same problem in a way. It's actually that you can agree that it's a great experience, but actually there's a lot of work on the screen. But what about the plot? And the big difference, in my opinion, is that Dune actually, thanks to the work for Frank Herbert more than anyone else, it's a great story. And also thanks to actually the Denis Villeneuve choices of modernized the plot created by Frank Herbert, you have a very interesting sci-fi plot nowadays compared to Avatar. and you have actually especially the idea of the big criticism of the first movie, which is true, and also from the Dune 1984 one, is the idea of the white savior problem syndrome. And I think that Denis Villeneuve wanted to kind of as a modernize this idea and tried actually to have balance this debate in this movie by developing much more of a character played by Zendaya very well, and her and other people like her who actually don't believe in all this fanatic faith. And I think it's a great idea by Denis Villeneuve and his team to actually, especially nowadays, actually to say actually that the world has changed and actually there is skepticism. Is that a word? Is much more important in 21st century, and I think it was the right choice.
It's like you mentioned, it's a film that you more admire but don't really love, and which is considering the amount of care that's gone visually into it. And I think it's because it's not for this book, which would have been much better as a huge production, a Netflix production or a TV production, where you can go really maybe into the world deep dive, which this book affords, and makes it quirky and interesting and weird and otherworldly, which would probably make you start loving this IP, quite honestly. I know there's some talk of the series of the Ben and Gesserit, but I think if you just did the main, maybe first 3 books, allow the audience to really, it will be the next Game of Thrones, that big thing, just get everyone together in a big event almost. And the fact that it's kind of like, it hasn't made as, I know, yeah, maybe businesses or studios are more used to their $1 billion IPs, and it's done okay. It's done very good. It'll cover its budget, but it's not as if this water cooler moment where we are still talking about people are dressing up or t-shirts and all that. That just didn't catch, I don't think. I think
mind you, I would say, like, I really appreciate like the fact that they haven't gone, oh, let's dumb this down to make it appeal to everybody. I kind of like the fact that it doesn't. I know someone who said, well, this just isn't for me, and someone else actually said that to me, and that's fine. And they haven't kind of gone, let's have a comic relief character who talks like they're in Friends, or let's try and have like a wisecracker in there to make it palatable to a certain audience. I do kind of admire that. The other thing is, even though I feel it wanders a little bit in the middle, like I thought the ending was really strong. I agree with what Richard said. I'm not familiar with the book, but Zendaya's stuff at the end. But the fight scene at the end is such a good fight scene, because usually fight scenes are, people throwing punches it really feels like a struggle for power, that fight. And it feels like quite a contained, brutal fight that you get at the end, not the usual kind of Hollywood nonsense that it is fun, but there's really good moments.
Much better than Sting. And
I didn't get through it. I know it's on Netflix.
I think
as well.
One of the best parts of this Dune is how they build Austin Butler's character as a menace. I mean, he's in his own horror film in black and white, and it works.
I thought it was Sin City. Yeah, it's Frank Miller's Sin City.
He is in his own little mini movie. Yes.
You know what? I actually thought for a lot of the film, Harris Dickinson's great in this, and then realised it was Austin Butler as the credits rolled. And I did the same thing in Oppenheimer, where I thought it was Chandler, who's the actor who passed away last year. I thought it was Matthew Perry. I thought it was Matthew Perry, and I was like, "Oh, it's Jason Clarke." I didn't even realize that, and I think people have confused those people in the past. I mean, with Austin Butler, he's under a lot of makeup in this, so maybe I can be forgiven more for that.
But when readers the book, I think you will find it is a bit like, this is a very safe, most cinematic. It is a very almost pedestrian, as in what is missing from this, which you couldn't really put in a film. You could only put in a series. And this is the whole political maneuvering, the how space travel is actually done, how spice is actually involved in that. That's the main engine of why the spice is so valuable. It is involved in space travel, and how. And there is a great scene. Now, maybe there are not that many fans, even David Lynch himself, of the 1984 Dune movie, which is available, I think, free on Channel 4 streaming now. And I strangely keep going back to it, but there's a small screen at the beginning where you have the the guild, and actually the mining guild, and the navigator, who actually how they kind of like demonstrate how space travel is done. But it adds a little character and world building. It's like it's almost there's a feeling to it where you maybe in Star Wars, the first movie where it was the first one to come out, where you just enter the bar and you see all these races and all this world, and it's like, wow, that looks like an infinite world that you would actually, think about, do fan fiction about, and so forth. This is a bit more missing from this. It's a very clean aspects of that story. The main narrative drive a bit rushed.
Are you saying that there's this movie in the 90s that is part of the saga Spice World?
No. Wow, that has much love. The Spice World has more love, maybe. And people are still talking about it, as you just demonstrated. Well, they'll be talking about this version of Dune in another 20, 30 years. I don't know, quite honestly. Or even next year or next month, honestly. And I think that's something that is a strange thing to put a finger on, why it's not loved and it's why. It's okay. It's fine. It looks beautiful. I admire it. It's not something I'm going to...
I don't think the thing is that there is no, again, a bit like Avatar, there is no fan base around the world. Even if it's like a space opera, etc., there is no fan club or fan base about Dune in the last 50 years that have been created. And you would think, it has all the ingredients to have actually a huge community around the world who actually love this thing. But no, you're right. Why? I don't know. Perhaps it's just the quality. I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't appeal. I don't know. I don't know why.
Maybe though. Do you think that might change over time? Although I don't know then if it's one of those. One of the things that I said before. So apologies for repeating myself. But like that, sort of my generation or our generation is maybe one of those where we were the first generation where we had stuff that we could rewatch. The generation before us, they just had to go to the cinema to watch it. We had it on VHS, so we watched Star Wars over and over. And now you've got a streaming generation who don't watch anything again because there's always something else to watch. So maybe people that would love this would just go, oh, I like this, I'll wait for the TV show to come out, and they don't rewatch stuff, which is, I think, where people start to really love it. But
there will be a fandom now. Now with these two movies, there will be a fandom.
Yeah, but
I think so, but it might build once it gets to streaming and stuff like that. And like in 2 or 3 years, people will be like so excited for Messiah. I think a little gap might help that actually.
They could have said that. It should have happened with this episode. It should have happened with this if that was true. It was like, well, because it's the most where most things are happening. It's all come to fruition here, and it's like, but where was the anticipation?
Yeah,
well, I know it's been a bit of a time gap, but that kind of disappeared and went, and so it kind of showed you what was going to happen with this. I think obviously studios were hoping for something else, but it's happened all over again. It's come. You got your premiere. Looks beautiful. Critics say,
and then you move on.
And then you move on.
Yeah, but then, I don't get it, James. You were saying actually that you think that back in the day when Star Wars were released on TV or on cinema, you were saying that people will rewatch them in cinemas because. I'm trying to understand. Do you mean actually that nowadays, because of the importance of streaming?
We talk about the video market where it was able to have this. I think though.
I think there was just less choice, wasn't there? So back in the day, like I only had like 10 VHSs and they're big and chunky, right? And that you rewatch. There was a lot of rewatchability from like my generation, which I think now, like even with the MCU, people love the MCU, but they would always be excited about the next one. And I wonder with Dune if people haven't. It takes a while before people get that. Like people can quote Star Wars, can't they? They can quote every line from it. I wonder if it will just take a while before Dune gets. But people rewatch Lord of the Rings.
But I believe actually that in recent years there have been some things, TV shows or movies that were created in the last 10, 15 years and built fan bases and etc. And even in the streaming age, I mean, things like I don't know, it's not TV shows that. Sorry.
Avatar.
You're right.
Harry Potter,
Game of Thrones or Stranger Things have become pillars of pop culture, and people rewatch these things, etc. So I really think actually that Dune is something else. I'm not sure actually it's the rewatchable ability of this thing that is the problem. I don't know.
Well, I think like this has been out actually this year. It's worth noting that one of the biggest films of the year is the June Part One re-release in cinemas. That's like made a lot of money, and I think next year, when it gets to a year's anniversary, they'll be putting on double bills of this, and people
yeah.
will go and see, and it'll be one of those films that people will go, "I want to go and watch it on the biggest screen possible." And I think it will actually build like.
That's
And I think
possible.
it has got a following now, but I think it will build over time.
Possible.
And it's worth actually studios playing that long game and like going, do you know what? It's worth, maybe it hasn't made $1 billion now, but I bet it will do like in a few years. Like in 10 years' time, it will be a film that can keep being re-released
Possibly,
in
yeah.
cinemas. I do believe that. And it'll be one of those ones like Lord of the Rings. I mean, the fact that Lord of the Rings is over 20 years ago now, that's got a huge following. And I think generations that haven't been born yet will go to this film
Oh,
as
100%.
well. Yeah.
You gotta capture the teens, basically.
Yeah, you have to capture the teens. Yeah, actually, you're right. It's actually they can
Like,
spend the 20, 50 years of their life.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things.
I would say the future of cinema is actually not just the re-releases, but putting old things back into theaters because, it'll make money and they could do it for cheaper, but maybe more people will come. So I think they'll continue to do that with basically every franchise and other movies and things.
But I think there's a lot of stuff based off of video games that's
Oh
coming
yeah,
out.
I was about to say video game.
Yeah, I mean,
new age. I'm saying this for months. Yeah, the age of video games. Yeah.
like they're filming Last of Us season 2 now. I guess that'll be coming next year. You have Fallout series.
Borderlands is a big release for
Borderlands
August,
in
Oh,
August.
Borderlands, yeah, that'll be summer, and then I guess for more families, there's Sonic franchise.
Legend of Zelda is being filmed.
Oh, Legends. I guess Knuckles spinoff is coming soon.
Yeah. The sequel to 2021's Mortal Kombat, which I know everybody can't wait for. Carl Urban playing Johnny Cage
cameo.
is really curious.
Leave us hanging on that, yeah. And I hope another Assassin's.
No. You're joking.
Like a
What did
proper-
you say? Another what? Sorry.
Another Assassin's Creed.
Or Tomb Raider. Would you like another Tomb Raider reboot until maybe, statistically, you've got to kind of get your numbers will be up if you throw the dice so many times. Yeah.
That being said, saying that maybe be like Andrew was saying, etc., I've been saying the video game age, whatever adaptations, it means that like the comic at that age of the last 20 years, you will have good and bad stuff. And I say that because remember that next 1 year from today almost, you have a movie called Minecraft.
Oh yeah, I guess it's animated or live act. I can't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, there's stuff that appeals to families, and there's stuff that's more adult, like Fallout and The Last of Us. So it just depends.
But the good news is that Fallout, Amazon, I don't know for other countries, I'm guessing is international release. That's been announced actually that Fallout on April 11 will be released the whole season on the same day. It won't be actually a weekly release, which is surprising for Amazon, by the way. Anyway.
Right. Well, thank you, folks. That was great. Cover a roundup of March's releases. Next month we'll probably cover Roadhouse. And we have another and Godzilla.
No, basically
Fallout comes out. Oh, really?
Oh yeah, on Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And the new Godzilla X King Kong, which everyone's been waiting for, which has the whole area kind of like it's open season for it because I don't think there's much competition.
Yeah, I've already seen it. So.
Oh, you've seen it?
Well, I saw it in
That's
advance
today in
reading,
the UK.
so.
Okay. Do I need to watch the
Godzilla
I
versus
need to watch the TV show? The TV show on
No,
Apple
they don't
TV.
really reference.
I will.
I mean,
I will
it's canon,
understand,
but you don't need to watch.
I mean, I hope they fixed everything that was wrong with Godzilla -1.
Yes.
I'm glad they've gone, right. What that film needed
exactly
was King
It's
Kong
more
in it.
explosions.
Yeah.
More explosions.
Now it's a
yeah.
+1.
Yeah.
That's a film
yes.
that you can't watch at the moment, so it's not got a home release and it's not on streaming. Godzilla -1. I really want to watch that again. I think I watched it twice.
Considering
anyway.
it did get a nice nod in the Oscars, actually, I think the whole
Yeah,
team
won
got
the
the best effects or something like that. It was like
Yep.
great. I think that was more of a recognition just how good that film is from the word of mouth. So yeah, surprised it hasn't been there, but
The 70th anniversary.
yeah. So I
Oh,
think
there is a A24 production that everybody is talking about. I was trying to find the English name. Civil War.
Civil War, yeah.
Oh, Civil War. Yeah, that's
I think that's out next month.
Alex Garland. Yeah.
oh yeah,
We've also-
that looks great.
Furiosa as well, the Mad Max spin-off. I saw a longer trailer for that last night, and that, I mean, I thought it looked pretty good from the trailer. We'll see when it comes around.
Is
Everyone
it,
loved Fury Road.
Miller. Is it the same director as?
Yeah, same director.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anya
yes, yeah. I
Taylor-Joy.
wasn't sure if he was just the producer, but it is him directing.
Which
That's
is
cool.
amazing. A
Same
director who's been in the game for so long and then just comes out back after so many years and shows everyone how it's done. It's amazing. Great. Actually, some titles to look.
Oh yeah,
There
there's
are-
also Rebel Moon Part 2.
Of course.
No.
How could I forget? April.
Oh, it's a shame. I just canceled my Netflix subscription.
Well, now you have a
Oh.
reason to resubscribe.
Yeah.
We'll be doing, of course, a Rebel 10-hour special next. There's nothing that will stop me watching Rebel Part 2. Anyway. Well, thank you again, and until next, we'll see you then.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TV review.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.